Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half English on the home side, half American on the away side. Both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel a good few times before. I've had very nice beers from both of these breweries over the years, but I think this is the first time I've had a collaboration between these two particular breweries. But the beer itself is an interesting style, one that's becoming a little bit more kind of prevalent these days actually. So I'm really curious to see what this one has in store for us, because it can be quite nice when it's done properly. So yeah, hopefully this makes for another interesting beer. Hopefully it's another interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one. So yeah, for the home side of things then, we are going to go to Leeds in Yorkshire in the north of England, and we're going to have a look at another beer from North Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Green Curve. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and this one is a Kveik IPA. Kveik yeasts, of course, come from Norway, from Voss in Norway. And they're basically Norwegian farmhouse yeasts, but they can give you some really nice fruity characteristics in these kind of farmhousey, kind of New England type IPAs. But this particular beer is brewed in collaboration with Stillwater Artisanal, who come from the Baltimore area over in Maryland, but they're a very well-known gypsy brewery, of course. And this beer was actually bought in my local Tesco in Alloa. So quite cool that in Scotland we can get North Brewing Company stuff so easily, and like I say, my first time seeing them collaborate with Stillwater. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. My first Kveik IPA, if I remember rightly, from North Brewing Company, but I suspect these guys will probably know what they're doing when it comes to this style. So let's go for it. As always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from North Brewing Company and from Stillwater Artisanal, and you will no doubt see more added to both of those lists at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you, and another one for all the American beers. This beer will appear in both of those because it is dual nationality. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about these breweries then, we'll start off with North Brewing Company, since these guys are the home brewery. So on to my brewery notes. So North Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Leeds in Yorkshire in the north of England, and the company was founded by John Gingell and Christian Townsley, who owned the North Beer Bar, which opened back in 1997. But today these guys operate 6 different venues around the city. But apparently North Bar used to work quite closely with the likes of James Clay and Vertical Drinks to help promote craft beer in Yorkshire. And as I've discussed in previous English reviews, or Yorkshire ones to be specific, Yorkshire's a little bit of a special place in England when it comes to craft beer, because it's been very prevalent for a long time, whereas in other areas it kind of died off, if you like. The two men to speak to about that would be Rob Derbyshire from Hop Scene, and also Stuart Pickard of Ginger Ale Ale Chill. So do make sure you check out those channels actually. But the original brewery that these guys had was in the Taverners Walk Industrial Estate. It had a 200-person tap room and a 15 BBL brew kit. And the original brewers were Seb Brink, who used to work for Golden Owl, and then Darius Darwell as well, who used to work for Bristol Beer Factory. I think both of them are still involved in the company actually. But these days it's Seb that is the head brewer, and they've got a fairly large brew team actually. But they now have a tap room in Sovereign Square in Leeds, and they recently opened a new brewery called Springwell as well, which has 21,000 square feet of space. I don't know what that is in meters, this is what the article said, but they will take this will take their brewing capacity up to 16,000 hectolitres of beer per year, as well as hosting a 500-person tap room. So I do need to go and check this out on the England tour. That will be something that will be getting done. But as of September 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 200 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and as I've mentioned to you before, North Brewing are one of the most respected breweries in England at the moment when it comes to IPAs. I've had mainly New England IPAs from these guys, a few other kind of random things, right enough, but yeah, they are a very well respected brewery actually, and the standard of English craft beer, as we know, is very high at the moment. So there's a lot of good breweries out there that you need to check out. But yeah, that is all I can tell you about North Brewing Company for the moment. I can't remember how many beers I've had from them at this stage, but a very good brewery that are definitely worth checking out, and very prolific as well, so there's always new things being released from them. But yeah, if you want to learn more about them, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that's it. Let's go on to the American side of things then, and Stillwater Artisanal. So Stillwater Artisanal, as I mentioned to you, are originally based in the kind of Baltimore, Maryland area over in the US, but basically it's the venture of nomadic gypsy brewer Brian Stillwater Strumke, who is a native of Baltimore, Maryland. He's a former world-renowned techno DJ apparently, and a producer as well, but he quickly made himself known in homebrewing circles for using, you know, unusual ingredients and adjuncts and various different kind of brewing methods and stuff like this. He was using wild herbs, spices, wild yeasts, amongst various other things. But he started homebrewing in his backyard years ago, and he's actually been rated as one of the best brewers in the world for quite a long time actually, and he's remained high in the top 100 brewers in the world according to Rate Beer, which is quite an achievement actually. But he now travels the world doing various different collaboration brews with breweries across, you know, breweries everywhere. He brews quite a lot in Sweden actually, with the likes of Dugas Brewery and things like this. But in 2018 they announced plans to open up their own brewery in Greenpoint in Brooklyn, where they plan to invest heavily to create a sour beer fermentation brewery and also a barrel aging project, as well as opening up a bar. But the crowdfunding investment is still underway from what I can see, and this place is going to be called Production. But Brian says this isn't going to distract from the gypsy brewing work that he does, but rather it's intended to be a tap room and a sort of pilot batch brewery. So I'm guessing if beers go down well in the production facility, then they'll get brewed on the larger scale elsewhere as a collaboration with somebody else. But as of September 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, Stillwater have produced around 150 different kinds of beer, although that's according to Untappd, but with a brewery like this, I guess that's maybe a little bit inaccurate because they've been involved in so many collaborations and things like that. So Stillwater have probably brewed a hell of a lot more than 150 different kinds of beers. I might remove that from the notes for next time. But yeah, these guys are very, very well respected gypsy brewery, potentially behind Mikkeller, maybe the best known gypsy brewery in the world, but you could argue that Mikkeller are not gypsy anymore because of that facility they have out in California. But regardless, Stillwater, very, very nice brewery. It's mainly sour beers I've had from these guys actually. I've not had any kind of normal beers from them, but maybe that's something we can look at when I go over to the States again next year. But yeah, that's all I can tell you about Stillwater Artisanal for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages a little bit to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is it for your history section in this video. Let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer itself. So before we open it up, just a little quick look at the artwork, and as you can see, this one is quite similar to what we've had from North Brewing before. There you can see the North Brewing symbol. That is also on the back of the can there, and you can see Stillwater as well. But yeah, I have to say I'm still in awe of this camera. The camera on this phone is ridiculous actually. But yeah, it looks great. This one, 440ml can. And what did I pay for this? This wasn't that much. This was actually about, I want to say it was about £2.50, or maybe £2.60, something like that. So that is somewhere in the region of £2.60 is maybe about what, €3.50, somewhere in the region of 35 Swedish krona for this. So this is pretty damn good actually. We get a very good selection of supermarket beers here in Scotland these days. So yeah, cool that we're getting some English stuff as well. But let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. The Green Curve, a 6.5% Kveik IPA from North Brewing Company in Leeds in Yorkshire in England, and Stillwater Artisanal, I should say, sorry, a gypsy brewery based in Baltimore in Maryland. Now the hops in this one are Eldorado and Sabro, and I think this will be a really interesting combination. Sabro, of course, is quite tangerine and orangey, and it gives you a wee bit of that kind of nutty character as well. The head on this beer, of course, is going a little bit crazy, so we just need to be a wee bit careful with this. But then Eldorado is an American hop, about 12% alpha acid, if memory serves me correctly, and it gives you some lovely kind of big juicy mango, a bit of passion fruit, and you know, some apricot and pineapple and things like that as well sometimes. So yeah, I think we've got most of the beer into the glass there, and we'll put the rest of it in when the head kind of calms down a little bit. So let me just line that back up again so it's nice and calm. But yeah, anyway, as you can see, I think this beer might have been, I hope it hasn't been sitting for too long actually. That's the only risk you take with some of these supermarket beers. But yeah, it certainly looks very, very nice, and kind of what you would expect for a Kveik IPA. So yeah, I would say 2 fingers of a frothy, I would say perfect white head there, but it's quite, you know, it's actually quite bumpy. I'll just bring this up because this camera can zoom in and let you see the head exactly. Just look at that. There you go. But yeah, the beer itself looks very, very nice. In terms of colour, I would describe this one as being a sort of, I'd say a sort of medium yellow, to be honest with you. So I always like comparing these sort of more hazy type IPAs to different fruit juices and things. So I would say that this one is kind of similar to like a mango and pineapple juice. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort ball is also going to play a role. Any adjuncts and things that you put in, or any barrel aging that you do, will also affect the colour of your beer, but usually you need to care about those 2 variables when it comes to sour beers, not so much when it comes to IPAs. But the level of haze on this one is pretty nice. I'm just checking to see, this one does have wheat and oats in it as well as the Kveik yeast, so I guess it's a kind of Kveik New England hybrid IPA, this one. But yeah, level of haze on it is pretty good, and of course it's the yeast, the wheat and the oat that determine the level of haziness that you get in these beers. But for a 6.5%er, this one's kind of fairly impressive actually. Not the soupiest and gloopiest one that I've seen, but yeah, it certainly works quite nicely. So I guess we can take a look at the aroma and see how we get on. There's nothing surprising about the appearance of this beer when you consider what style it is. So let's take a look at this aroma then. Oh yeah, Kveik yeast all the way. So you can smell, this is a really quite farmhousey IPA, this one, and that's, you know, that is what you would expect from a Kveik yeast, of course. It's lovely and farmhousey and bready. It's got very soft kind of tropical fruit notes to it, but you do get a wee bit of a kind of smooth green component from the hops as well actually. It comes across with quite an interesting balance in fact. So let's try and break that aroma down for you a little bit before we kind of go in and taste the beer. So let's just sugar it up a wee bit. So the backbone of this beer, it has a lovely kind of woody, it does have a lovely kind of woody tint to it in fact. So you can smell that woodiness underneath. There's a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty quality as well, and you get that soft kind of airy white bready note to it. I do actually get quite a little bit of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker out of this beer as well in fact, and that's another kind of common thing that you can often get with these Kveik yeasts. But yeah, I do think this goes together quite nicely actually. It's really, as I say, it comes across as quite an airy beer, but the more that you smell of it, actually the pungency of the citrus, I think, comes out a little bit more on it. So yeah, backbone, as I say, woody, Jacob's cream crackery, wee bit of bread crust in there. You get a nice kind of soft, airy white bread in it as well. You can smell a wee bit of the wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose too. I would definitely point that out as well. So yeah, a bit of wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose, but at the same time you can smell the wheat and the oats kind of combining to thicken the beer up a little bit and smoothen it out. You can definitely smell that in the malt base. And I think there is a wee touch of a biscuity sweetness to this one as well, come to think of it. But yeah, the aroma of this beer is pretty nice in fact. I do like how this one goes about its business from the malty side of things. It's actually got a wee bit of sharpness and a wee bit of zip to it, this beer as well, but that's coming from the hoppy and fruity side of things, so we'll come to that. But yeah, malty side of this beer is actually, the malty yeasty side of things I should say, I should remember it's a Kveik IPA, so you need to talk more about the yeast. But the malty and yeasty side of things in this beer combines together really nicely. It actually comes across as quite a soft and airy IPA in many ways, so I like that about this one. So yeah, it gets a thumbs up from me. And it gets a thumbs up from me from the malty yeasty side of things. On the hoppy side of the beer then, there's certainly a wee bit of earthiness. There's certainly a wee bit of earthiness in this one. I like how the the green component goes together as well. It's got a lovely big kind of floral aromatic sort of thing to it as well, which I like. But yeah, nice big kind of floral aromatic sort of thing in there. There's a wee bit of herbal quality as well, but yeah, a bit of earthiness, a bit of herbal quality, and a wee bit of a big kind of floral aromatic sort of thing there. But nice big kind of zesty green components, which I enjoy. Yeah, big zesty kind of grassy note to this one. So yeah, I think that really overall, when I think about the green component, it actually leans towards quite a zesty, grassy sort of thing. But you do have a wee bit of pungency to the floral notes, and I think that becomes a bit more apparent the more that you drink of this beer. Actually, the floral aromatic qualities push their way out of it a little bit more for sure. So yeah, that is definitely quite interesting with this one. So yeah, on the how would we say, on the fruity side of things with this beer, it's quite interesting too. I mean, you can certainly smell this beer does have a wee bit of that kind of coconut underlining from the Sabro, and you get that big kind of juicy tangerine note out of it. I find the tangerines are quite sharp in this one, but the Eldorado actually is giving you quite a pungent passion fruit, I think. But you get a lot of, like, you do get quite a bit of a kind of mango and almost peachy note out of this one. Yeah. There's a wee bit of the passion fruit in there. As I say, you do get a wee bit of this. You get a wee bit of this kind of guava, peachy sort of thing out of this one. This beer's got a little bit of sharpness to it on the kind of tropical notes, I have to say. So I wonder whether that's coming from the Eldorado or if some of that's coming from the Kveik yeast, because Kveik yeast, of course, will give you these. It will give you these kind of, these some of these kind of soft fruity notes to it. But yeah, as I say, wee bit of pungent passion fruit, I would say. Definitely some juicy mango, a wee bit of guava and a wee bit of peach, I think. But then you've got the coconut, and you've got this almost kind of just tangerine juiciness out of this beer as well. So yeah, this is an interesting one for sure. Actually, I do like how this beer goes about its business, in fact. So take a little bit of time and just ponder over the aroma of this one before you get stuck into it. But yeah, I'm curious to see what this has in store for us. So yeah, this one is the Green Curve, a 6.5% Kveik IPA, a Kveik New England IPA, whatever you want to call it, from North Brewing Company in Leeds in Yorkshire, England, and Stillwater Artisanal from Baltimore in Maryland over in the States. Let's get stuck into this one then. Slàinte, skål, cheers. I'm going to say it's a wee touch overcarbonated. That might just be due to how long it's been sitting, unfortunately. But yeah, otherwise it is quite nice. It's one of the only risks, no, it's one of the big risks you have with supermarket beers, unfortunately, is that they will sit at room temperature, unfortunately. I think that's one thing that supermarkets need to learn, is that these craft beers need to be in a chiller, actually. And if, even if they put 10 pence more on the can to fund the chiller, then yeah, that would be a worthy investment, I would say, for these craft beers. But yeah, I'm going to say this one is pretty nice, actually. Compared to the other Kveik IPAs I've had, it's actually got a little bit more bite and zip to it, which I do like. So yeah, some of them can be quite soft, but some of them can be a little bit more kind of zippy and citrusy leaning. But this one's quite zippy and tropical leaning, which is a wee bit different. So yeah, I'm going to say thumbs up to North Brewing and Stillwater. Before it actually has a wee bit, the kind of zip that you get out of this one is quite akin to some of the Dugas Stillwater sour beers that I've had, actually. Because Stillwater and Dugas in Sweden love to collaborate together, and they do some really good stuff. Tropic Thunder and all this, lovely beer. But yeah, this is another nice IPA, and the fact that you can get this in a supermarket, I think, is pretty cool. Yeah. So, yeah, where do we start with this one then? So it's one of these beers that it translates quite well from the aroma into the flavour, to be honest with you. So we can say the backbone of this beer is definitely, it's got a nice kind of, woody and crackery backbone. That's in the middle third and the back third of your palate. That just blankets the middle of the palate there. Absolutely. On top of that woody kind of crackery sort of thing, you can feel a soft kind of bread crusty layer. It's a bit more white bready into the middle third of your palate, but as you go towards the back third of your palate, it definitely gets a little bit more kind of grainy and bread crusty, or maybe a little bit wholemeal bready, you could say. So that is worth noting about this beer for sure. But yeah, that's the backbone of the malty and yeasty component in this beer, and that's both middle third and back third of your palate for sure. So yeah, let's focus on the middle third of the palate then. So as we say, you've got that woody crackery base, then you've got this kind of softer white bready layer there, but on top of that you can feel the wheat kind of thickening out the beer a little bit. Absolutely, you can feel a little bit of a slightly thicker wheaty note in there, and then going down the middle line of your palate you get more of you can feel the oaty kind of character in there. The oats just kind of smoothen things out a little bit, so you can feel that in the middle of your palate the beer almost gets a little bit sweeter, but then as you push out towards the edges of your palate you can feel that the oats kind of thin out a little bit and almost just give you a wee touch of dryness. So I like that about this beer for sure. So this does go together. It really does go together nicely in that way. But I'm trying to see if there's any sweetness in that middle third of the palate. There's maybe a teeny little bit in the very dead centre of your palate. Maybe there's a little bit of that kind of Werther's Original type thing out of this one, but really that's very, very minimal. Usually when it comes to these IPAs you'll get a little bit of sweetness to them, and that's covering up the kind of boozy side of the beer, but you don't get that so much in this one, come to think of it. It is more of it really is more of a kind of bready, smooth, crackery type IPA, this one. It is more of just a kind of straight up barley malt and yeasty affair, this beer, but there's nothing wrong with that, of course. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that side of things. So yeah, I think this one goes together very nicely in that respect. Yeah. So yeah, on the I don't think we really need to say too much more about that kind of middle. I don't think we need to say too much more about the middle third of your palate. Then let's focus on the back third of the palate. So border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up in there, a wee bit more of a kind of bread crusty, grainy sort of thing coming out of it. Then into the back third of your palate, again, crackery, woody backbone to the beer. You can feel a bit of that, you get a bit of a stronger bread crusty note there's got a bit of a more kind of grainy note, more airy white bread. Then towards the back of that front third of your tongue, you get a wee bit more of a kind of bitey, wheaty component to it. And then sitting on top of all of that, you get a more airy, you get more of a kind of airy, doughy, yeasty, bready sort of thing coming out of this one. So yeah, I do like how that goes together. That's the yeasty component of the beer, of course. But then yeah, as you start from the back of your palate and come further forward, you can feel that the flavour, it starts off tall, then it just condenses down a wee bit and squashes together as you go into the kind of middle third of the palate there. And I think, again, that works pretty nicely. So yeah, on the, I think that covers everything we need to say about the malty and yeasty side of things. So let's focus on the hoppy parts of the beer. So back corners of the palate, definitely a little bit earthy. As you move further forward, it gets a little touch herbal, and as you push towards the kind of front corners of the palate, it's definitely more sort of floral and aromatic, definitely. So I like the big floral aromaticity that you get out of this one. Around the front curve of the palate, though, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy. And I say there's a wee bit of zestiness coming out of the beer as well. But yeah, I do appreciate how that goes together. So yeah, I think you've got that nice, the grassiness. It's not quite as zesty as I thought it was going to be from the aroma, but I think the green component, it's got, there is a wee bit of a deep floral note to it. It does have a wee bit of grassy zestiness to it as well, but I like how that goes together. But on the on that front third of your palate, then you've got a nice mixture of things. So front border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you've got a little bit of a bready build up in there. You've got a nice kind of, you do get a bit of a kind of grainy note to it, but the base of that front third of your palate again is quite airy. It's quite it's quite a smooth kind of white bready note there, but at the same time you can still feel some of that crackery note coming through, but then the nice oily fruity character that sits on top of that is quite diverse as well. So if you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, you get a wee bit of a you do get a wee bit of that kind of more pungent passion fruity sort of thing, but you can feel there's some sort of riper, peachy, almost kind of green guava type things in there too. And that's quite interesting actually, because that's not something I would normally associate with El Dorado or with Sabro. That must maybe something to do with the yeast, I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, it's quite a green, ripe, tropical fruit kind of thing. Maybe that's why they've called it green curve, who knows? Power of suggestion, I don't know. Because it says on the back here, what does it say? Overripe tropical fruits. Yeah, can agree with that. So yeah, to me, as I say, it gives me a little bit of that, a bit of a kind of peachy guava sort of thing. I'd always consider them quite zippy, sharp tropical fruits. So what I was thinking makes sense with what they're saying. So, yeah. But underneath that, you do get one or two little soft apricot-y notes, but then as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, it's the Sabro that starts to show its head a little bit more. You can feel the kind of coconutty notes that you expect at the Sabro coming out of the beer, but there's also some, as I say, you do get a wee bit of that, you get a little bit more of a kind of oily orange, tangerine-y sort of thing out of this one. Yeah, say more kind of tangerine. It's not quite sharp, it's enough to be like mandarin or whatever. I'd say more of an oily tangerine note out of this one. But yeah, the coconut I think lingers there as you go further into the aftertaste. But that more pungent, tropically note, it really lingers as well. But overall, I think this is a really nice, IPA, this one. It shows off the Kveik yeast nicely, and the fruity complements, if you like, I think also work well. So yeah, I don't think we really need to say too much more about the flavour of this one then. To round off the review with the mouthfeel, I'd say it's quite a mid-bodied beer. The carbonation is, quite smooth, absolutely, I would say that, yeah, the carbonation is nice and smooth in this one. Yeah, nice smooth carbonation. It's just a kind of straight up mid-bodied beer. It's really right in the middle. It has a little bit of kind of cleanliness to it, I think, and carbonation is smooth. But yeah, it works well. It really does work well. In terms of hoppy bitterness and things, I think this is a fairly standard, 25, 30 IBUs, similar to a New England. I don't find this beer too bitter at all, but the malty side of things, as we say, very smooth. The barley malt side of the beer comes out nicely. You've got a wee bit of graininess in there, a bit of smoothness, a bit of bitiness and so on. Not the sweetest of beers that you're going to come across, of course, in the sort of hazy New England Kveik category. But yeah, the fruity side of the beer is nicely balanced between kind of tropical and kind of citrusy zesty as well, I would say. So I do like how this beer goes about its business from that perspective too. So yeah, a really just solid beer, this one. It does, the kind of vibe that you get from this beer in a lot of ways reminds me of some of the sour collaborations that I've had involving the sour things I've had involving Stillwater before. But the Kveik side of things, it shows off the Kveik yeast quite nicely actually. So yeah, I'd say that this beer, it does for me, it leans a little bit more towards Stillwater than what I've had from North before. But yeah, oh pardon me, burping inside my mouth there, not a good idea. But yeah, this one's pretty solid, and I wouldn't hesitate to drink this again, although as you know, I like to try different beers. That's what I like to do, rather than drinking the same thing all the time. But yeah, cool that I got to try this one, and I hope that you guys enjoyed my take on it as well. So let's round off the review there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from North Brewing and from Stillwater Artisanal. We will return to both of these breweries in some way over the next little while. Thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out North and Stillwaters, and I will see you guys in the next review. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and I hope you guys are enjoying this kind of homeland mini-series. Cheers.